All right, well, thanks everyone for coming. My name is Alex Allen. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Spring Venture Group. Really what we do is we're a holding company that focuses on distributing health insurance products via inside sales and also via web marketing. The number one brand of ours that we're going to talk about today specifically is United Medicare Advisors. So we specialize with this business in senior health insurance products. We have 230 inside sales agents. They work for us full time. They don't do any prospecting. We generate all of the leads for them, and we do so by generating traffic to our websites, and individuals fill out forms to receive quotes, and the agents reach out to those individuals via a phone call and hopefully sell them policies. So my team, the marketing team, works closely with a data science team to make sure that we are scoring all of our opportunities in real time. So if we have a funnel of several thousand individuals who we've not contacted yet, and we have agents ready to call them, we need to make sure that we are prioritizing exactly which leads to call and when, and how aggressively to try to get in touch with certain individuals. So right now, this is one example of a website that we might send someone to fill this form out. This is a first step. It's just a zip code, which is right here. And what we're doing is measuring individuals that reach the second step of the form to request a quote. On the next step, they actually see the insurance rates that we have to offer them, and then they can go through us for a policy and get contacted as well. So for us, it's important that we get in touch with individuals expediently. So 70% is our overall contact rate. We only contact 70% of these individuals. The most predictive measure that we can take to predict close rates, so leads turning into policyholders, is what we call speed to response. So 60 seconds from when you submit the form to when we call you the first time. If it goes longer than 60 seconds, we see close rates degrade substantially. Interestingly enough, we also see the same thing if we call you faster than 20 seconds, we see close rates degrade as well. So it's really important that we get in touch with people quickly, and it's also important that we can measure intent based off of some of the analytics that I'll show you here in a moment. So essentially right now what happens, or before we started using ClickTails Analytics, what was happening was we were just keying off of mainly lead metadata. So what someone submitted in the form, their first name, last name, gender, zip code, et cetera. So we build these machine learning models. Here's like a decision tree kind of approach where essentially we figure out which features are most important. So in this scenario, we see there's a keyword up here that the individual searched to click on one of our ads or one of our listings. We go through yes-no logic with different attributes such as gender, device type that the user is searching and browsing on, and then we predict close rates based off historical performance. So that's great. This helps us a lot. We can match leads to agents in real time with our proprietary logic that targets both close rates and lifetime value that we're anticipating collecting off of a policy if we do in fact close it. That's what we had access to, and it really all keys off of what the individual is giving us as far as their information, but also some appended data. So we'll append data from Newstar and a few other databases to see if we can learn more about the individual and how likely we actually are to contact them. But it definitely felt like we could have been missing something because a lot more goes on the website and via lots of different touch points that honestly, this metadata will never tell you. And so we started looking at different solutions to overlay more information. Here's a heat map example. So this is an aggregated heat map of mouse movements. And I looked at this and got really excited because it seemed like a new opportunity for me to stress out my data science team and try to do some sort of neural network approach to this. So hopefully you fill the form out. When you hit submit, I can call an API somewhere and ingest this and do some processing on it to determine if there are certain intent signals or certain behavioral elements from the experience of the consumer on the site, and hopefully use that information to help my data science team determine if there's any extra features that, when they're feature engineering, that are predictive in here. So what we found was by looking at a lot of these heat maps as well as session videos is that you can see trends for sure. This is a roll-up of, I think, a week of traffic. So we can, of course, see certain trends and like bucketed behaviors that we can make recommendations to a web design team on. But it's hard to really tie these directly to money that your company is making off of driving individuals to your forms. So what we wanted to do was determine if any of this behavior could be ingested with neural networks or some other way to determine in real time if certain behavior or certain group of behaviors in the session or with previous sessions could help us figure out better ways to call people and get in touch with more people and sell more policies. So what we found out was that there isn't actually a real video of your session. It's stitched together from tabular data. I felt really dumb when I realized that because it just doesn't make sense there to be a real video. So what we can do is we can take the tabular data that's underlying behind video as well as the heat map, and we can ingest that. Just an example where we can take all of these columns from different form interactions and different on-page interactions from a data file directly from ClickTail and tie them directly to yes or no, did the person convert to a policyholder, and eventually what is the forecasted lifetime value of the commissions that we are looking at here. So what we wanted to do with this was hopefully find a way that our real-time lead routing could key off of some of these behaviors and could help us determine, hey, maybe you need to call this group of people before you call this other group because we have a reason to believe that this group over here might be a better fit for your products. So when we did find that it was tabular, our data science team was able to use our existing machine learning processes to determine if there was a good way to tie some of these features directly into their models to determine propensity to buy and likelihood of closing. So what we found was this, and this was really exciting to us. So these are new features that we found in the data set for the first 3 weeks of data, and literally finished this analysis a week ago, so it's very fresh. What we found was that we had about 10 new features in this data that were predictive of higher close rates. So our close happens on a phone call, so it's offline. So we tie all that together by passing a form ID through and found some interesting stuff. So the number one important feature we found was mean typing speeds. How quickly does the individual type? We don't really have a hypothesis behind why that's important. But what we do know is that sales agents who can type faster, I know this because I test them on this, actually sell more policies. So we have some sort of reason to believe there's a more synergy between the prospect and the salesperson speaking with them. So that was the number one most important feature on this importance graph up here. Time to type, so how long the individual took before they started typing, was also really important, as was duration of typing. So we've long used typing duration for other types of form submissions to detect fraud. It's really easy to determine that if it took 3 seconds to fill out a long form, it's probably not a human doing it. But we do actually find different buckets of the typing duration performing better, and it's fairly linear. So those are the top three. We also found usage of autofill or prefill was actually not good for us. You can see here close rates actually went down for prefill and autofill from 5.7 to 4.6. That's definitely material. And you can see the opposite here is the case with the typing speed impact on close rate. So when we take these factors and pull them into our workflows, we can determine not only who should we call more quickly and who should we call more judiciously, but also how should we change the behavior, the user journey, the customer journey with all of our various touch points. What we're doing now is trying to determine if any of these are indicative of someone being more likely to work with us on an SMS basis or on an email basis rather than just calling directly. And we'll have that data shortly, but right now we've proven that a new workflow needs to come through our dialer that includes these parameters that we otherwise would have absolutely no access to. So here's one example of an enhanced process where we kind of mocked up a different way to look at some of these leads, some of these people that fill our form out, to take this data from the actual session behavior and pull it in with our existing items. So we start off here with form typing speed. So is it greater than 3 keystrokes per second, yes or no? Autofill, yes or no? And then we introduce keywords. So this is becoming part of our real-time dialer logic because we did find that it was just so predictive of higher close rates. So this is really just our first kind of crack at this analysis, and our next steps are to understand what other features are out there that we can glean from this kind of analysis, as well as to make sure that we monitor that these features do maintain their level of predictive power, because we do see that market shifts and also just data shifts can cause a lot of this to change and become the opposite of predictive. And then we also are really looking forward to having kind of collaborative discussions with a lot of these technology companies that build platforms that can enable this data, because when you're feature engineering, which I think is the most challenging part about building models, it's really important to be able to manufacture new features as well. So, we can be given features from a software suite that tell us form typing speed, that's a feature we're given, but we can also manufacture features based off of a field we get here and a field that we have in-house. So one business use case for that is that we found that if you take an individual's birth month, so 10 for October, and you subtract the current birth month, if it's 0 or 1, so if it's their birth month now or if it's within 1 month of it, we found that close rates were almost double, and we're trying to figure out why that was. Well, it turns out the reason was because people get rate increases from their carrier on their birth month or within 1 month of it. And so that became highly predictive, and it was not a feature anyone would just hand it to us. We had to figure it out on our own. So the hope is take some of that business context in the back end that we have and match it up with some of the new information that we have access to and understand how we can kind of take that customer journey to the next level, because it already is proven that we can prioritize certain leads to dial based off their behavior. Now, how can we be even a little bit smarter about it and change the entire customer journey from the beginning to the end? So right now, I think some of our biggest takeaways that we've seen are that the binary conversion is very important, but it's not always as important as the whole journey. So what we find is that when we focus too much on did the person fill the form out, yes or no, the 0 or 1 binary conversion, the problem there is it's just descriptive. It tells you what happened. It's not diagnostic. You can't diagnose why something happened. So we do actually find the visual playbacks and the visual heat maps to be powerful here when you're having an analyst kind of dig into something that's maybe not fully, the story's not fully there by just staring at a spreadsheet. So in addition to just diagnosing, we also want to be able to prescribe future impact. So making sure that we understand what leads to certain conversions, not necessarily what's kind of bucketed as like behaviors, but what types of behaviors can lead to multiple types of conversion is important to us, because predictive analytics is important, but prescriptive analytics, where we can actually change what happens in the future, is more important and makes us a lot more money than just predicting. Also, kind of like the events that live between the page views, we always want the why behind the what, and so this is the first time we really had access to that. Getting the data in tabular format is really powerful because it allows us to just kind of hand it off to a group of data scientists, and they can really just tell us what they find. Are any of the fields predictive, yes or no? Is it all just noise, or how can we enhance what we currently have by getting a hold of this data? And eventually, when you do know the why behind something, you can help with the next touch point. So global touch point optimization is something that we're really keen on right now. It's important for us not to just brute force call people. There's plenty of people that do not want to be called. We find plenty of people prefer to chat via SMS with bots. They're way nicer to bots than they are to actual humans on email and chat. And if we can identify some features out of some of this on-page behavior that can help us kind of inform what the next consumer touch point should be, we think this could be really powerful for us. So overall, I think, just wanted to say that this information has been really helpful. It goes beyond just staring at heat maps from sessions, and actually allows you to pull these things in real time to enact change, to execute in your business, and make a lot more money without just having fancy reports. So I'd like to open it up. Does anybody have any questions about what I covered? Yes? So the question is, do we set expectations with the user that they will receive a call from us? So when I first started working, I was not a lead gen person, and this was my first kind of lead gen endeavor 5 years ago, and it was very rare that an individual would know that they would be getting a call when they fill the form out. So what we've done over the past few years is we've slowly moved toward being more and more transparent on that. So we provide people with the actual rates. We let them know on the pages that we are Medicare advisors. We will be working with you and contacting you. We still do find individuals that aren't expecting to be called, and that's kind of our hypothesis behind the 20 seconds, is that it's probably a little bit startling. But when we start to segment more of these behaviors and overlay them with that speed response metric, I think we might actually find that certain on-site and on-page behavior is predictive of maybe not needing to call someone as quickly, or maybe even having the first touch point not be a dial. So right now, we do tell them, hey, we're going to be calling you and contacting you, but in the future, I think we'll actually be able to segment even further. Yes. So actually, there's people manufacturing, actually writing code right now for a lot of different products for call centers that are essentially HTML5 browser. You can click here and call me right now. Not even on a phone. I can like call you through your tablet, essentially. And what we do see is that initial testing on giving the person the option to request a call right away actually has fantastically higher close rates. I think they're like 30% higher, which makes a lot of sense. And we have tested landing page language where essentially we said, hey, we will be calling you right away. And we actually didn't find that it made that much of a difference in conversion. So the same number of people essentially filled the form out. I think what we're learning is that when people look at when they come to our website to specifically request a quote, a lot of times they almost treat it like an application and not an actual informational website where you can also request a quote. So if they're seeing a landing page, we have to test incredibly drastic elements on the page to make any difference. If you just change the color of the button or the headline or anything, I love to write, so it kind of made me sad that the headline doesn't matter for us. But when we found that out, we realized that like you actually do need to try drastically different approaches, such as saying, hey, we will call you right away, or hey, you can actually just text us without calling us, without filling this form out, interface that way. Yes?
Yes, if you're using the click-tail data to prioritize who to call when, can you also use it to kind of maybe personalize the talk track to some degree, like you see people struggle on the form, or maybe explore time to respond for 7 to 20-second call, maybe you can call further in the future during daytime television. Is there any other opportunity to use this for?
So there definitely is. Two of the fastest things that we discovered were that when we watched some of the session videos and looked at some of the heat maps, no matter how far down your reviews were, our reviews were on the page, you can see here they're all the way at the bottom. No matter how far down the legalese, the disclaimer information is, people were scrolling down and reading it. They were hovering over reviews. We do have cohorts of individuals who actually specifically hover over carriers, which is, we see that in sales a lot. There are some people that don't care about which carrier they're going to get. There's other people that'll literally pay more for the exact same product if it's Mutual of Omaha, because that's what they've had their whole life. So the goal here really is to say, okay, what are we seeing as far as the different buckets of behavior on the site, tying it specifically to leads, and then you have to kind of control for individual sales agents because they're the biggest X factor, and then determining what kind of intervention might be helpful there. I think it's pretty powerful if you can tell an agent this person was definitely hovering over and trying to click on, for instance, these carrier logos right here that aren't actual links. You know, that might inform the agent that, hey, I should lead with carriers. And the same thing goes with reviews. You know, we have plenty of access to reviews. So we're actually looking at ways right now where we can optimize our Salesforce CRM layout so that we can actually push script updates to people based off of behaviors. We also have, as I mentioned, an application that shows individuals the insurance rates on the thank you page, and they can kind of change their demographic information. They can add a spouse. And our hope there is to, because we do have the code on that page as well, our hope there is to capture a lot of information about which of these people who are online shoppers are actually taking the time to look through multiple plans on the rate comparison engine versus people who might just want to be contacted and talk about it. Yes? I'm sorry. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Could you share an
From a banking app, I will have examples from my own pages. We actually haven't used it on, well, we have used this code on a desktop application for comparing pricing, but we've never had the opportunity to put it on a banking app, sorry. Yes?
The takeaway slide, can you just go ahead to that? And then the last one, you said, when you know the why, you're more likely to succeed. Can you just talk a little bit more about things that you've done to try to understand the why?
Sure. So right now what we're doing with this data to explain the why is we're trying to capture which parts of the page and of the website are important to which groups of users based off of their on-page interactions. So we'll segment out several heat maps and determine that we've got certain individuals who will click on and read every single article about prescription drugs before they'll look at anything else. And so that's helping us kind of with cross-sell. With the touch point being post-sale and it's a cross-sell, it's a little sensitive, and so we want to be respectful of the individual and make sure we're not trying to sell them 100 different things. We want to sell them exactly what they're looking for. On top of that, I would say that because we can record all of our calls and do kind of sentiment analysis on everything, our hope is to be able to take this data, layer it with that sentiment analysis, and use it for actual kind of operational sales enablement. We can build kind of scorecards for agents and for lead types that said, hey, the problem in this group of conversations was that you did not, as an agent, respond with empathy when the prospect was showing anger towards you. So that's a big part of right now of what we're doing to determine when should we stop calling somebody. So there are some individuals that we actually will only call one time now because based off our data modeling and also based off some of the behavior that they showed on the page. My favorite is the term rage clicks, which is a thing. It's clicking really hard in the spot over and over again to determine whether or not we should actually keep those people in our funnel or if we should offer them the opportunity to receive some sort of email updates from us or nothing at all. That why is important because the fixed cost of agent time is one of our biggest expenses, and also the funnel of available records to dial on the dialer can get clogged, and so it's important to us to understand when can we just take people out of this funnel and we'll stop bothering them, we can get to other people who want to talk to us. Knowing the why behind, or at least having information on the why behind someone not picking the phone up when you call them is important because it allows us to do that sort of thing. Yes?
So just to clarify, sometimes when you have the agents call, you're actually analyzing the records from those calls to try and understand what happened?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're being transcribed, and we're conducting natural language processing and some sentiment analysis on them and building kind of scorecards. Oh, yes? Yes.
How were you able to do that?
So the way that we were able to run that analysis was essentially by taking one ID that when the session begins is stamped right there and passed through the entire visit. And then if someone fills a form out, we pass that into our database there. So then in our record, in our CRM and our database, we have essentially a ClickTail ID that's tied to all that data. And so we can then take all of our policyholders who came through one of these websites, as well as all the people who told us never to call them again, as well as everyone who got a quote from us but did not ultimately buy. We can tie them all to those individuals, and that allows us to say exactly why this group of people that type 5 keystrokes or faster per second have a higher back-end close rates because we were able to pass that ID through the entire experience. Does that answer your question?
I don't know how you can isolate the other features when so
Oh, well, I mean, essentially what we're doing is we have holdout sets, but we also just are taking any record where we have this data and comparing the back end. I mean, we're comparing the back end close rates across all of the features and finding the top 10. So we hadn't really have to isolate for them if they're showing lift like that way.
Hi. Just wondering if you're combining the analytics with user research or UX research, user feedback.
So I'm really excited to do that. We actually just partnered with a company called Deft Research to do that exact thing. We've never conducted any sort of surveys. We've never really even gone down that road. I guess it's because we haven't had to just yet. But when you look at this data, it really kind of screams at you. You should probably combine it with that kind of approach as well. So that is, I literally signed the contract today, so that's on the horizon. All right, well, thank you.